educational system, aren't we? And they have taught us what we need to know to operate in their system. But that doesn't mean they've taught us everything. There's lots of stuff out there that they haven't taught us. But the burden's on us to go find that stuff out. The government lawyers make up a statute that properly applies to those entities that they have jurisdiction over. I can show you court cases that say that. The burden is on us to assert our sovereignty. If you don't assert your rights, you lose them. The member of the sovereignty gets unknowingly involved in something that operates as a contract by which he loses his sovereignty. First of all, you've made a mistake of law and fact. Second of all, and I've seen Crown lawyers go in and argue this, is that there's no contract, it's a nullity, okay, because I'm the king. And the government can't get me in a contract that gives up my sovereignty. And so when you start bringing that stuff up, they don't want to talk about it. I guarantee you, they don't want to talk about it because they're guilty, you're pointing out that they're guilty of multiple indictable offenses. And so I'm the king. They cannot get me in a contract that gives up my sovereignty. That's perjury of oath, that's treason, that's sedition, that's all sorts of stuff. Whose duty is it to protect the Constitution? The courts have ruled that the government is not the protector of the Constitution. If the government is not the protector of the Constitution, then who is? It's up to we, the people. And it's up to we to challenge what they're doing in a variety of ways. You can sue them, you can file criminal charges, you can do it administratively. Most of my stuff is administrative, but I'm preparing a lawsuit right now against the city of Lethbridge, and I'm going to file that. And I guarantee you, I'd be surprised. I would be surprised to see the Alberta Attorney General suddenly decide to leave, and who knows who else. Anyways, it's the people that are supposed to be protecting the Constitution. How do we, the people, protect the Constitution? We protect the Constitution by challenging what they do through the courts or administratively. The burden is on the sovereigns to know and understand the law and to assert their sovereignty. And actually, you don't have to know and understand all the law, you just need to understand that it doesn't affect you. And so, all you got to do is know where to go and find it in their own codes, rules, and regulations to see that it doesn't affect you, and then it's in the definitions section of their statutes. And that's as far as you have to go. And they always have a definition section. Anyways, how can you regain your sovereignty? As far as when you get into something by which they view to be a contract, all contracts must be entered into knowingly, willingly, and intentionally. So it's a fraud. None of the contracts entered into with the government by which you might lose your sovereignty are willing, intentional, or knowing. They never, again, they presume everything. The sovereignty, sorry?
A subset contract.
Yes. The sovereignty of the people is unalienable, okay? Now that's a very important word. It's not inalienable. It's unalienable. If you go to a law dictionary, you'll see, if you look up unalienable, it'll say see inalienable. Well, that's the typical trick that these Lions bar members do, and that's not true, okay? It's unalienable means it cannot be alienated under any circumstances. And that's what I tell them in my paperwork too. They know it. And the reason they know it is because they criminally convert your name. So they know that they don't have any authority over a sovereign living soul. And the proof of that is they're spelling your name different. So they're going after a corporation, yes.
Because if you break down the word, it's unalienable. In other words, liens are all commerce, which is fiction. Fiction can't put a lien on something that's tangible.
Actually, alienated comes from the word alienate, which means to take away. Okay, so it's unalienatable. Okay, so alienate means to take away. In other words, take away your rights. But maybe liens in there too, I don't know. But actually it comes, my understanding is it comes from the word alienate, which means to take it away.
So the definition of the word
Imprescriptible. In other words, they can't make a statute or something that takes away your rights. Okay? Prescription. In other words, they can't take them away by prescription.
I'll read you something, Glenn, just so people understand this. I don't care what your basis is, but all law is based on the Bible, the 1611 version. In Genesis 26, it states, God said, let us make man, let us make him in our image and our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and every other creepy thing that creeps upon the earth. So that's where your law comes from. You were given dominion over everything, and our Constitution, our Charter, our Canadian Bill of Rights, the first line in every one of them recognizes God as, and His law as the supreme law. So if you go back to the first thing He said, where He delegated you as the authority, where did you give up your authority?
That's right, and they don't have any authority, and we're going to go through that when we'll be talking about, I've got another presentation called Color of Law that I split down the citizenship presentation into two because it was getting too big. So there's the other presentation, that's the other half of it, is called Color of Law, and it shows how it's all contracts. It's all contracts. So in order to regain your sovereignty, you have to assert it. Okay, what's happened is again, our parents went and got birth certificates for us. We went out and got social insurance numbers. We went out and got driver's licenses and all that stuff. So we gave them all of this evidence that there's this corporation running around out there. And so we had to take away their right to presume. Okay, remember it's under martial law, and I'm going to show you that. Everything's under martial law. And so presumptions are taken under martial law, and they presume everything until you defeat their presumption. And that's what my procedure does, is it defeats their presumption. When you assert your sovereignty in this way, so you build a case with evidence you can use in court at a future date should you need to do so. 9 times out of 10, you won't need to, okay? Most of our public servants are just honest, hard-working people, and they want to do the right thing. But there are courts out there, and we need to have our stuff ready in case we run across one. As with any criminals, you build a case against them and prosecute them. Send all documents by registered mail with return receipt if possible. Registered mail is kept under lock and key, and there's a chain of custody. So you have absolute proof that they got it. The government attorneys may turn it over to a bureaucrat who may also respond to a point, yes?
What if they don't sign for it or refuse to sign for it?
Well, that's grounds for a criminal complaint because they have an oath of office. I'd file a criminal complaint against them. And you'll have proof that they didn't sign for it because it came back to you.
Well, they
Or
won't, they won't
sometimes-
sign it.
Yeah, sometimes they'll get it.
They just get,
but
desk
just-
signs it.
Oh, I don't care, that's fine.
They
If
just-
they got it, they got it.
But
If
they
it's
won't
sent by
sign it.
registered mail,
Right.
they have authorized representatives that are allowed to receive stuff anyway, especially courts and stuff like that. You serve it on a judge, some court's gonna sign for it, I don't care. He got it, and I presume, okay, remember, they take presumptions, so do I, okay? I presume they have an
Get
oath
two
of office.
verifiers on your document saying it was sent.
That's right, and I print off the webpage showing that it was received.
Okay, so
That's
is
my
that-
proof of service.
Is that the return receipt you're referring to then?
Well, in Canada, in the US, you can actually send a green card and they'll sign it and send it back to you. Here in Canada, they don't do it that way. You get a receipt, right? And then I go to the website and I do the Canada Post tracking, right? And it'll show that it was signed for and it'll have the name of whoever signed for it. And I print that page off, and then the receipt that you get from the Canada Post is a self-adhesive label, so I stick that on the bottom, and it's got their name on it, so everything ties together. You see what I'm saying?
2 pieces of correspondence that I sent via registered mail to the IRS. I know for sure one was received at the IRS because I received a response yesterday, which took 6 months, by the way. But online, it showed that it arrived in Los Angeles, but did not go on to its destination in Texas. So, I was
The
considering
IRS
going
does
for
that? They have fictitious mailing boxes all over the place. They want to,
But it was addressed to Texas, so
Yeah.
it should have arrived at least in Texas. But
Yeah.
online, it shows that it only arrived in Los Angeles.
yeah, no doubt. It doesn't surprise me at all because they do that
So
stuff.
they're not following what
Well,
they should.
it's a fictitious mailing address.
Yeah.
It's actually, I don't know, if I get something from the IRS, I file a criminal complaint against them because they're sending something to a fictitious mailing address, which is a zip code. And anyways, yes?
I'm just gonna make that point that they go to Texas, but then they'll put in the zip code for LA, so that's probably what happened. They go by the zip code.
It's, everything is in the matrix, I'll tell you, with the IRS. You know, I don't even deal with them. They don't want to talk to me, I sue them. But anyways, go ahead.
Just one valid point here. If you're gonna communicate to anything, okay, you have to make sure whether the thing you're communicating to is alive or dead. And if you communicate to any government agent, you're communicating to the dead.
Anything is to the dead. When it's a government official, matter of fact, it says right in the, if you look in the United States Code, okay, it says that any government employee has to be a U.S. citizen, okay? And this is all Title V United States Code. I can show it to you. And then it says a U.S. citizen's a corporation, okay? So you have to be a corporation if you're going to work for the government. And that's why they can take taxes, okay? And in fact, anybody in the United States who receives a government pension benefit is a government employee too. Did you know that? And think about that. That means anybody that's got a social security number is a government employee. That means it's a corporation again.
And an officer.
Yeah. But I mean, that's how they get it all in there, okay? So that means anybody, you know, anyways. Okay, if the government, first of all, they may respond on point. You have to know who you are, okay? If they respond on point, file a criminal complaint against them. I do it against judges. I don't care who they are. I file criminal complaints against them. I filed a criminal complaint. You ever heard of U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales? Okay. I filed a criminal complaint against him and attached it to a petition for a writ of certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court. And 2 weeks later, he resigned. And he said that he was hiring attorneys to defend him against the Department of Justice. And now you got to understand that they will never, ever, ever admit that anything you did had anything to do with what they do, okay? But I can't tell you how many times I file criminal complaints and all of a sudden somebody resigns or they just disappear or who knows what. Yes, you were going to say something?
So Glenn, are you going to show us how to file a criminal complaint?
Yes.
Good, perfect.
And in my paperwork package, there's copies of actual criminal complaints I've filed. Okay, now, this is something that I've done. I've done it a lot, okay? So this is not something that's an experiment or anything or some theory, okay? This is something I do every day, okay? I'm getting ready to file a lawsuit against the city of Lethbridge, okay? I do it every day. And I don't pay filing fees, okay? I mean, just go down the list. But anyways, so, yes, we'll go through that, okay? But you got to understand that this procedure sets up the scenario where you're building a case against them for perjury of oath, for treason, sedition, all sorts of stuff that is going to wind them up in jail for many years. And so they will never admit, oh, gee, I guess I'm sorry, come and take me away, okay? They'll never admit it, okay? But it's amazing how all of a sudden people disappear, they decide to resign, who knows what, okay? A lot of times they don't respond at all. And if they're smart, they won't. I've actually had some good responses. But we'll go into that. In order to be true sovereign, you must be self-reliant. You can't just talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk. Okay, you gotta know who you are. It's a way of life, it really is. You gotta be knowledgeable about the law, at least enough to know that it doesn't apply to you. You got to know how the law works. You got to be prepared to take the initiative. You got to go on the attack, and that's what my procedure does. Is it goes on the attack. Now, hopefully, the little bit I go on the attack, they're busy diving for cover. They don't want to talk to me, and that's the way I want it. Matter of fact, the way I